Everyone dreams of living an uncommon life, and the best asset you have to achieve your dreams is you. Welcome to the Uncommon Wealth Podcast. We're going to introduce you to people who are living uncommonly. We're also going to give you some tools and strategies for building wealth and for pursuing an uncommon path that is uniquely right for you.
Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of the Uncommon Wealth Podcast, where I'm your host, Phillip Ramsey. Today we have an amazing guest, and I can't wait to just get and hit record, let him talk, and I'll just stop talking. His name's Jeremy Delk. He's with the Delk Enterprises Strategic Capital. He talks. He's got a book. He's got all these different things. He is part of America's fastest growing 500 companies. Kind of cool, and is just doing some amazing things. Understands how to scale, knows how to, use people in order to get further than what he even had, knows how to inspire people. So, Jeremy, welcome to the show, my man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Okay, my first question is always, it says in your bio, you're a father, husband. How long have you been a husband? Let's start there.
So I've been a husband. I'm remarried. So I guess cumulatively like 12 years, 13 years. But I've remarried and we're actually on our second anniversary. So yeah.
Okay.
I've got 3 kids, 10-year-old, 5-year-old, and a 7-month-old. And yeah.
Would you rather, do you think it's easier running a business or being a father?
Fucking business, man. Business is easy.
All day.
Business is easy. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, dude, for sure.
We were at an event last night. A good buddy of mine, his wife opened up this like luxury shoe boutique or something. So like we went, took the kids out to dinner and, supported, said hi. And then I left my wife there with all the other wives and I took the kids home and, dude, bathing and putting down a 7-month-old, then the 5-year-old, the 10-year-old is pretty self-sufficient. He's right. pretty cool. But all of them are cool. But like he's like 10. They're basically small adults. Yeah. But yeah, Jesus, like I can put me in a boardroom in like hostile situation. I'll murder it.
All day. Yeah,
all the stuff. But afterwards, you're like, yeah, I've nailed it. And like, of course, like my wife comes home, and I'm like, well, you know what I've done. And she's like, yeah, I do it every day.
Every night. Right. Yeah. Right. It's such an interesting job just being a mother and parent, but I agree with you. Like I'd rather run a business than parent at times because it just seems like it's just a little bit more weighty and it seems like it constantly is changing. Like I feel like I figure out my kids are a little bit older than yours. I have a 15, 14 and 11-year-old. But what my poor wife does, it seems like she has like an Uber job and she just Ubers them around all over the place. It's crazy. Yeah. And the logistics that she has to go through. I'm like, I can't do it for one day. So
it is
awesome. All right, let's talk about just your uncommon path and how you got to where you're at. Cause I love talking about that. Like just the history, how did you get to where you're at and how all the roads kind of point to where you're currently at. So let's talk a little bit about your history.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think hopefully I'm a pretty good guess because like uncommon path, like I literally wrote a book called Without a Plan. And I think that's how I've kind of basically executed it. I mean, there's even if I laid you out every single step, it would just be a zigzag windy round of stuff that doesn't make a ton of sense. But I'm from Kentucky originally, grew up in a small town called Bardstown. We're the bourbon capital of the world. So probably 20,000 people. So at that young age, I always had this kind of yearning desire to kind of want to be more, see more, and do more. Mm-hmm. And I think, like Sinatra said, if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. And I always had that thing. I wanted to end up in New York City. And growing up, in Bardstown, the culture is, and it's also the 80s, right? Like the culture and what I'm exposed to, like all I knew in New York was like the mafia and Wall Street, right? So I'm Delk, so German English isn't going to really work out in the mob. So I started, looking and reading Investment Business Daily and the Wall Street Journal in high school, and that ended up propelling me to an early career on Wall Street after going to school in the Northeast. I started day trading in high school. really smart in a bull market and made a few $1,000,000, $30,000 inheritance from my dad passing away, turned that into $2,000,000 and managed to blow it up in 4 days. So that was a great time.
Good learning lesson.
In the moment, I'm like the biggest failure, like drinking myself to sleep and like waking up at 6 a.m. It was just a catastrophic thing. But looking back, it's quite possibly the top 1 or 2 best things that's ever happened to me in my life. It gives you that perspective because, you look at people, and that's why I speak a lot and I talk, on podcasts and on stage. We as humans have this really poor and negative connotation and relationship with fear and fear of failure mostly, right? And I found that, a lot of that is, that's not a lot, all of it is really in between your ears, right? It's so much in your head that you're so scared of what's going to happen, and not to you, but if I fail, what everyone else is going to think of you. And, I try and tell, like, once you get comfortable realizing no one fucking cares about you, like other than like your kids and your wife, probably, like and your mom, like it's a very like just washing away of emotions. Like, wow, like I'm okay. And then once you kind of get that, where it doesn't matter what people think because they don't really care, they have their own problems. When you look back at failure, humans are resilient, right? We're probably one of the most resilient species, but also our minds are pretty smart. Like we have this self-protective property where we don't like to dwell and think on trauma and negative things. We always just you go through it, someone passes away, 2 days later, you're okay. Like you're mourning and then you're good. We just put that in a box. And I don't really promote looking back and dwelling. That's not productive, but you really should. We've all had failures. Like I lost my dad when I was 7. I blew up a couple $1,000,000. I've had high highs and super low lows. When you're in that spot, and you've got an event that's happened, that's, oh wow, this is a big punch to the face. And what am I going to do? Like what happened for me, like when I was on Wall Street and I started Delk Enterprises 20 years ago, the courage for me at 20, and I was making at this point on Wall Street in New York through a very windy road. I talk about in the book how I got there. I was making more money than my mom and my stepdad combined. And I just pulled myself back up from losing this $2,000,000. And I told my mom one day, like proudly, like, hey, I've resigned. I'm going to start my own company. I'm going to go because I'm not inspired. I feel like if I stay here, I'm going to die inside. Right. And she's like, you're fucking crazy. You just kind of got your shit together. And she was right, probably, that it was crazy. I've still got friends that are on Wall Street and are very successful and happy, but I would be miserable. I would have truly died inside. But the thing that made it completely a no-brainer for me to go and do it was, what's the fucking worst that can happen? Right. I just looked, I lost $2,000,000 in 4 days. And now I got some money. If I go start my own company, fucking worst case, I'm not going to be down to 2 million and I can go back. To Wall Street.
You can go land on your bridge.
Yeah,
it's good.
Yeah, exactly. But it's, if I didn't have that first step, it's all the fears. I mean, you hear about people that have the greatest idea and they're going to start their own company and they've talked about it for 2 years. So I'm a big proponent. So the book, what I speak about is both, family, personal life, which is a lot of trauma. I kind of like probably trauma, but talk about the personal side of business and then the business side of the business. And the biggest takeaway that I try to really land home is change your perspective on failure. And, no one has it fucking figured out. Right. Show me, like, sometimes I always do some podcasts. I love, like, if there's a live call in, like, show me someone that had a forecasted business model for a global pandemic in a 2019 business plan. I'll give you everything I got. It doesn't fucking happen. So you can't control every piece. And I think sometimes you can overcomplicate and overplan which is just poor strategy, right? You have an idea of a direction on the horizon of where you want to go. I think that's great. But, oftentimes I've seen it happen so many times with, people, founders I invest in or I'm mentoring or I'm coaching, and they've got this 75-point plan before they get started. And then at, month 9, they're at a fork in a road and they had planned to go left when all the current information is fucking blaring your face says to go right. They are, some will go right, but a lot of people will still go left because that's what their plan was.
Right.
And it's just silly. Why can you
audible out, Omaha. Let's go.
No, it's not exactly. Yeah.
Right. It's crazy because I was just thinking about this the other day. I was talking to a friend. I was like, hey, what if you knew you couldn't fail? What would you do? So that was like how I kind of baited him a little bit, which was interesting. And then
I saw someone that the quote was something, if you knew you couldn't fail, how big would you dream, or something like that?
All right. That's good.
Which is nuts, right? Because I think that's every time you get another level. I remember like I was making a few $100,000 on Wall Street. I was like, dude, all I gotta do is start my own company. If I can replace that and make $300,000 a year, dude, I'm fucking set.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, like I probably can't get by a month or so, right? But
right.
You scale, but there's always those different levels. And I think that's, just think bigger, go bigger. Like why not? And if you have that childish naivete approach, like why can't it be me? Why can't it work out?
Right. And I love talking to people who are employees, and I'm like, how much money do you think you made your company? Like 10%, just take 10% of whatever you've made your company. Like you'd be set for life. And they're like, exactly. Oh my goodness. Like, so you're valuable. So how do you do that? So after I asked this guy, like, what if you couldn't fail? And then I'm like, but what is failure? Like, think about your life and think about where you're at currently. And you tell me that it's been the good things that happen is the reason why you are today. Or as it has been the challenges and the trials and things like that. And he's like, yeah, it's definitely been all the hard things. And I'm like, okay, then is it that you'd fail, or is it that it just wouldn't go according to plan and you'd learn and you would adapt and you'd finally have a good roadmap to get to where you want to go? And he was like, right. Yeah, that's a good point. It's all in our head. It's basically what I'm edifying. What you said is it's in between our two ears of failure, because especially the optimistic ones and the ones that don't fall victim, the ones that take ownership, are the people who are like, yep, that happened, but we're going to adapt, we're going to learn, we're going to overcome. That's what I'm talking about. So cool.
No. Yeah, just the other piece, I think I see a lot of people struggle with is, and you mentioned employees, which kind of triggered it for me, because like new employees of mine, they just it aggravates the fuck out of them, because like I'll walk in, like we're going to a meeting and big meeting, right? Multinational company. You're like, what's the plan? Like, I don't know. Or I just watch what I do and kind of go through it. And then, or like you'll get like a lawsuit, or you'll get like some event, and like, oh my God, like what's going on? And it's like that old proverb, well, let's see. Well, let's
right. Is it good? We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. And I think that's the idea is like, if I'm a firm believer that there's nothing in life that happens good or bad. There's only events. It's the emotions and the actions that we apply to those set events that will dictate if they were a good or bad thing. And that's the thing that really just frustrates people. Like, oh my God, I've lost. Well, okay, well, let's just see how it kind of goes and understand it. Right. And don't create that it doesn't, it's not productive. Like you can be upset, mad, but that does not do anything. So, you took a bad loss, cool, cry, fine, get the fuck over it, cry faster, right? Because it doesn't matter, because that's not going to get you back on the path of where you're headed anyway.
Right. Okay. So you quit your Wall Street job. You tell your mom, I'm out. And she's like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And then is that when you start Delk Enterprises?
Yeah. So I started Delk Enterprises in 2001. So I was 21 years old, and I'm 44 now. So that's been my main holding company from then. And while the path, I never had a plan, the key kind of piece that's always been there is this curiosity and willingness and eagerness to kind of really learn. But it wasn't super thought out at all, right? So when I was making a bunch of money, I was making good money. for a 20-year-old in New York.
Sure.
I loved real estate, and that's where I was going to go. I wanted to build things because I liked to see like ideas and creating. On Wall Street, we weren't making anything but money. We were just moving trades and moving money around. So that was something that really drove me. So I didn't have New York City money to be a developer, but I was sending money back home in Kentucky, and I was building houses and fourplexes, duplexes, cutting in roads and subdivisions and stuff.
Diversifying.
Yeah. So I was doing that. And one of my first business partners, his family was in the lumber business in Brooklyn for like 80 something years. He was with Dreyfus. I was with Fidelity. And he left the firm to join his family business or a division of his family business, which was going to be in windows and doors. And I didn't know him about a window and door other than like they opened and closed, right? But the idea was that it was so simple that, hey, I'm building shit in Kentucky. They have windows. You have a window thing. Let's see how it can work out. And that's how the idea of like in purity. And then from there, we learned that was really probably my best. I studied business, but that was my really business school because we took a retail distribution or a retail window store in Long Island, New York. I became a partner of that business, and we grew that from distribution, right? So we became a nationwide distributor for a Canadian line. Then we started importing European tilt and turn doors. And we did like Carl Icahn's house, Calvin Klein's house. So we're now doing like $2 million window jobs, these massive houses in the Hamptons. Right. And then started OEM. So then we started doing our own manufacturing and then went through distribution, like a two-step distribution model. So it was literally like, hey, selling windows to people coming in for their house and remodel. And we looked up the entire value chain. This was over a 4-year period, and that business is still around. I sold it, and my partner's still in it. But that was the really antithesis of. It gave me a lot of understanding of just how business works, and I use that same principles now in any business. Like we're looking at buying a distillery, we're doing a commercial to resi conversion piece. We've got. You mentioned Inc. 500. That's my thing. I updated. I actually have my second Inc. 500 company now in health this year, which is cool. First one was 24, I think, 24th fastest growing company. This one's like 140 out of the 500. Wow. So, pretty excited about that. So that's the very utility way of how I saw an opportunity. Wasn't glamorous. We made a ton of money in that business, but it was literally like that simple. And I think that's what people forget. They make things so fucking complicated when it doesn't need to be. Right. So that was the first piece of Delk Enterprises, continued real estate development, and then the building materials. I moved back to Kentucky or began to move back to Kentucky, commuting and met my first wife. My grandfather had a building material business. I bought that company from my brother and, installed him in there. And I started spending, more time in Kentucky than I was in New York. Mm. And the windows and doors that we were selling in New York, it just wasn't going to make sense. I couldn't go back into finance because Kentucky is just not the epicenter of finance. So I found myself like, well, what the fuck am I going to do?
Right. Now what?
Yeah. Now what? Right now I'm here. And my grandfather had been in the equine business, owning racehorses and stuff. And
interesting.
I got into horses, and then just through some random relationships that he knew in the horse industry, we met these guys from Australia, and they had started, this was in 2008 and 9, and they had started a regenerative medicine stem cell company. Treating dogs with osteoarthritis, joint disease, like fat drive stem cells. And that I can sell anything. I remember getting like the pitch of it. I'm like, yeah, dude, I can't help you. I had no medical training, nothing outside.
I've never sold a door before in my life, or windows.
Yeah.
And look at what happened. Yeah.
Yeah. So I became an investor. I'll throw you $200,000 and see what happens. Then we became like a master distributor, see a trend, right? And then I became the CEO of the global company. We took that company public, took it private, made a lot of money transactionally with that business. Wow. Traveled the world, which was really kind of a cool piece of like the kid that always wanted to kind of go and do and see more. It afforded me to go to 28 countries or something. Wow. And set up distribution. And that was my entry into healthcare. And then that little building block in a random meeting in Dubai, when we were over there working with Sheikh Mohammed and Sheikh Khalifa, I met my next business partner, also from Australia, from Melbourne. And he was...
Is anybody from Australia just have to be successful because their accent? Like, come on. If I had that, come on.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's the size of Florida too. It's only 20 something million people. Yes. It's like everyone just like striking hard.
And I get it because like they talk. Yes. And I'm like, yeah, just take my money, do it. Yeah. Just get it done.
But yeah, so that led me into, he was in the human health. Like I can't do anything about human health, but I do know something about cell biology and bioactive peptides and macrophages, like all self-taught through, because I had to know. And we opened up a pharmacy business. That was the first Inc. 500 company, and scaled that, had a lot of fun, made a ton of money, and I lost you. Made a ton of money and, got a $600 million offer on that business. Turned it down because I was probably making like $1 million a month, something like that. So like I had a billion friends and like, they weren't living much differently than I were. Like I was, chartering my planes. They owned theirs. Like that was mainly the main Delta. And 3 days later, I was at the gym and I got like a panic phone call from the pharmacy. I think like 60 FBI agents. Yeah. And FDA raided our pharmacy. And there was this whole it was a sports horse doping scandal from the old company that I had exited.
Wow.
I think they thought that's what it was. Clearly it wasn't. We weren't doing anything on the human side, on the animal side rather. But yeah, that was a really high rocket ship down to a massive near crash. So that was a pretty big buzzsaw. Like that was probably the 20-year. I guess hopefully I only need 2 of these in my life, but the first one was losing a few $1 million,
right?
And then 20 years later, getting fucking punched with that one. So hopefully I'm done. Like
wow.
And this was like in March of 2020. So this is right around the time of COVID.
Oh, yeah.
So. And it's a highly regulated industry, and we scaled that business from 0 to 60 million bucks, like in really quickly. So there's definitely some things that we should have done differently and what have you. So cost me a lot of drama, a few $1 million in fines, and I exited that business, risk. Like I was like from the guy that's fearless and doesn't care about risk, went to like fuck this. Like I'll sell fucking popsicles, man. Like fuck this shit.
Yeah.
I don't need this. Especially like when your freedom is threatened and all those things. It's just a very scary time.
Yeah. So, it's not worth it. It's not worth it.
No. And then you get real perspective. Like cool, like all this money, but what does it matter if like you can't go and take your kids to school and that kind of stuff? So I paid the fines. We began to sell the business, and I ended up taking half, 50%. So, a lot less. I sold it for $7 million. So I left about 580 something. My lawyer's like, "Oh, you gotta be happy with that, right? All the scrutiny and stuff." I'm like,
"It's relative. I knew what I could have got." Right.
It's relative. Like, I'm not upset about $7 million, but we actually had an offer of 12, and we had an offer of 12 million, and it was from a Florida pharmacy, but they were going to just buy our book of business because we grew to the biggest in the country. We kind of brought this technology, peptide. I don't know if you're doing regenerative or age management, hormone therapy, something like that. So we kind of godfather that into the US. Now it's super mainstream. Ozempic is probably the biggest one now.
Right.
So they were going to just buy our book of business, and then there have been 107 jobs that we just would have put out of business.
Wow. Couldn't do it.
Like fuck that, dude. Like I got to live here. I'm not moving. Like it's like
right.
The extra 5 million isn't going to change my family's life that much. Mm-hmm. But so you take that, and like that's a really bad, fucking horrible thing. What was me? 6 months before, my business partner, and he was our big sales guy that was killing it for us. He had this idea of measuring your age, your biological age, right? Because what we were doing is a lot of anti-aging stuff, but there was no real marker for it. And he had this idea. We had spent $1 million in cash and bought all the state-of-the-art equipment. And we were just making so much money and busy and having fun, like whatever, it just wasn't a priority. That equipment was still in our warehouse when this whole raid happened. So I look at that as like, okay, that was a good. It's like, all right, well, fuck this business.
Yeah, right. But
so that I think I don't know if we I truly don't know if that raid didn't happen, because I get asked all the time, would you take the money? Like I don't think I would have. I wouldn't have done anything differently. I think I would have, and it's weird to say, but the only reason I turned down the money wasn't because of money. I wanted to hit $1 billion. Like that. I think it's rare air to take that shot, and I don't care about missing. I want to take the fucking shot. Right.
Right.
So that business, got a bit of a lift, like, all right, well, maybe we actually do this. We bought another building, the building I'm in today, and we launched that company in April of 2020. And that company is the company I just mentioned on the Inc. 500 list. Second. So it's called True Diagnostic. It's pretty exciting. I don't know if you're into human optimization or anything like that. You've heard of Brian Johnson or those guys.
For sure.
So like that's all us. Like that's Brian.
Oh, that's
like,
great.
Yeah.
Very cool, Jeremy.
So it's super cool. So like the whole point of it is just because you get a fucking right hook by Tyson doesn't mean it's over, man. And
right.
We always have, ways to be resilient, but you got to do it, right? Because you got to get up.
You got to step in the ring. You got to step in the ring.
I can't remember, like one of my best friends, he's on this golf trip with me. Because I wrote this book. First time I wrote the book, it was dog shit, because it wasn't lies, but it was just all about business.
Yeah. It wasn't personal.
And business is so personal. So the second part took 6 more months because it was hard, but I left out like shit about my failed marriage and just like a lot of really stuff. And I wanted to kind of show that. And then I closed out the book, and he told me, he's like, dude, you're a little fucking bitch. I'm like, why? He's like, you just sound like a scared bitch. So you're closing. And like, he was like, the way I ended the book, and I was doing all the things, but it was just like the way it reads is like, so now you're done. So cool. Like, what are you going to do? And like, I changed I refocused the ending. I said something like, I may have struck out, but I'm not done swinging or something.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Oh, that's good. Very cool. So how do you keep everything organized and still got a family, got a wife? Like, how do you keep all your priorities in check? Like, do you have like an accountability group? It's like, hey, I can get dialed into this business thing and completely forget about things. Or like, where do you at now?
Yeah, well, I guess, I don't know. You had an unpopular opinion maybe, but like, I think, work-life balance is fucking bullshit. I don't believe that at all. It's super cliche as well. I'm just spitting on kinds of cliches, but like, if you love what you do, it's not work, but you just figure it out. Right. I mean, like this morning I got to take the kids to school, drop them off. I went to the gym, check out some projects. I'm on this podcast. I'm going back downtown to do a new meeting for a new development piece. Like, you just kind of figure it out. I try to be as present as I can be. Like, I wasn't happy in my last marriage, and I would find reasons to stay at the office, and you can always find reasons to stay, but like, I won't miss dinner at home. Like, I do the pickups. Like, I try to be there, because like the amount of time, and remind me for a trip challenge. I want to make sure we hit on this before, because it's important. But I try to just be as present as possible when I'm there, and then get the work done. So like my routine may not be for everybody, but like, I actually just, go home, and then I get the most work done, not at the office. I have to be at the office because you need to be seen and you kind of go through, but like most of my stuff, like get the kids down, wife puts on a show and just sleep in fucking 30 seconds. So once she goes to bed, it's like quiet. I grab the laptop out, and it's, my best probably genius work is between 10 and 2 a.m.
Wow.
And then kind of roll from there. So that works for me. Mm-hmm. Then you just, pile it on, and it's ebbs and flows in business. Like, you've got a ton of stuff on, it's stressful. And then like, you're not so bad.
Right. Okay. So what's the future for Delk Entertainment or Delk Enterprises? Like, what's the future for you and your companies? I mean, and really, you probably don't know. Who knows? It sounds like you're just going to take it as it comes.
No, I mean, like the goal, and I think you should have big goals like we want with the True business. And I'm not, I'm out of that business I'm a big investor, and I take some advisory meetings and that type of stuff. But I've brought in adults to kind of run it now, which is good, because it's profitable, it's scaling. But I think the goal of that business is to be one of the most valuable healthcare companies ever, right? And it's the moonshot of what it can be is, and this is like a really bad elevator pitch, which is why I'm not leading it. But it's while we're hitting on biological age, but we're looking at over 850,000 CPGs and biomarkers. So we have a lot more data behind that. So the idea is like Theranos, but not a fraud, right? The Theranos, right. One text, but they were looking at a different thing. We're looking at DNA methylation. So what if it's, switched on? So that's my big $1 billion lottery ticket that, will come or won't come, or, I think the money I don't care about, but I think if we can change this fucking broken system of healthcare that we have a little bit and be a part of it, I think that would be good. And that's business. And then for personal, and Delk, I'm looking at a bourbon deal and maybe investing in a distillery, and just all sorts of different interesting things that I'm curious about, and I like that value. I'm a firm believer that business is business, but I want to take time and enjoy all this shit too, right? And I feel a bit of an obligation to give back, and we do that with charity and stuff, but these podcasts and things I think are important, and speaking on stage, because I guarantee there's someone in your audience that's listening that's struggling or going through or on that kind of cusp of like, do I do it or not? Mm-hmm. And just like, it's not what if you do it and fail? What if you fucking don't do it and it was successful? Like that's the thing that they don't look at, right? Like, oh my God, like what if you fucking don't do it? Like what if I just fucking packed it in? We wouldn't have like, what if I just, and that's the choice, and we're all led with them. So that's that. On a personal thing, because I know like with your audience and your piece, something I've stole from, I like the Japanese, sometimes I steal it and make it a little bit better, but I stole this, so steal it for me. I've kind of coined it like this 4-trip challenge. And I started doing it with my oldest son, and it's changed so much. I mean, the relationship that I have with all of my kids, the baby is not there yet, but we talked about like your wife's doing the fucking unpaid Uber driving and fucking like doing so much. Like I was like, I did fucking bath night 1 out of 100. You know what I mean? Like, so the moms are the fucking heroes, and that piece, the moms are naturally the nurturers, and you always have that. Like you're going to have that. The dads are more like, what's up with your homework and that kind of piece, and helping out with sport. But the 4-trip challenge is basically, you've got, in my opinion, 4 opportunities and 4 experiences that can shape and cement lifelong relationships with your kids. So it's on every birthday milestone at 5, right? So 5, 10, 15, and 20 years old. You separate them to make it more special. You also separate to make them, save up for them. And, they don't have to be extravagant or expensive, but like you just let them go. So my son, his birthday is right after Christmas on the 27th, kind of gets shipped out. Like, hey, what do you want to do for your father-son type of deal? And his 5-year trip was Legoland. This past year, 10, he upped it to Dubai. I'll actually hook him up with you. He does all kinds of crazy shit. So he'd love this thing we were talking about in Switzerland.
Yeah, Via Ferrata.
If you go on my Instagram, you'll see him. Like I check it out. Like I was like, dude, I did all kinds of stuff. Like I hate snakes. We went to this Sheikh's private zoo, and we're holding snakes and doing all kinds of stuff and feeding alligators and lions. This kid ziplined in Dubai Marina by himself. Like I think it was a 49-story building. Wow. Zipline through the marina. Okay, it's the coolest thing ever. And it's like fearless. Like it's awesome. So like it's so cool to see them come into it. But we flew to Dubai and rented some cars and did all this stuff and like had great dinners and just talking and bonding. And my daughter, her 5-year trip was obviously she loves Barbie. She's all girl, and she wanted to go to Barbie World. So like, what the fuck is that? So I had to find a Barbie World. Turns out there is one. I think it moves, but there was one in Dallas.
Wow.
And her and I did that. She had the Barbie hat on, and her and I just flew to Dallas for a few nights and did Barbie World and American Girl doll and Sugar Factory for dinner and like build all those things, and just had so much fun of just just us traveling. It's just that one-on-one complete experience. And I get way more out of it than they do, but I do think and they already talk about it. Like we came back from Dubai, my son's like, hey, but what are you gonna do for your 10-year trip? I mean, like they're already kind of looking forward to it. It's so fucking cool. So steal that from me and do it. It's probably it's such a great thing. I can't recommend it enough.
That's cool. That's really cool. Well, Jeremy, I love what you're doing. Really appreciate your wisdom and just your guidance here. Cause I think there's a lot of people that are just like drinking everything what you're saying. It's like, you don't have to tap out. You might got hit in the face and you might be on the mat, but man, just like Rocky, just get up. The better stories are when you get up and then beat them. So, so I love it. Thank you for your time, man. I appreciate you. Thanks for impacting the world like you are. And thanks for just being uncommon. I love it.
No, thank you, bud. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, you've been listening to Uncommon Wealth Podcast. I've been your host, Phillip Ramsey. And for more information for Jeremy, you can go to his website. He's all around. So Jeremy Delk, Delk. Thanks again for listening. And you've been great. Appreciate it.
That's all for this episode. Brought to you by Uncommon Wealth Partners. Be sure to visit uncommonwealth.com to learn more about our services. Don't miss an episode as we introduce you to inspiring people who are actively pursuing an uncommon life.